Here, this is really the risky area, really. In 2019, there was a major flooding event where, well, it was just the sea, plain and simple. It's quite impressive to see.
We're really in an exceptional location in the sense that the coastline of the Guiana Plateau is unique in the world because it's connected to the Amazon sediment banks. That is to say, the sediments from the Amazon flow into the Atlantic, and about 20% are pushed back along the coast, traveling from Brazil to Venezuela at a rate of about 2 to 3 kilometers per year. And here we are the estuary of two rivers, the Maroni and the Mana. These mud banks, well, it's when they come. Afterwards, they are colonized by a tree, the mangrove. It's the Wisenia. And then once the mud is in place, we can have the forests developing out into the sea at a rate of about 500 meters per year. So it happens very quickly. But on the other hand, it disappears just as fast. That's why we have a very, very dynamic coastline, which is unique in the world. When we experienced the first flooding in 2019, we asked the state and the BRGM what could be done. They told us, in your case, the best thing to do is a sand replenishment because it's a flexible solution. That is to say, it's not a dike, it's not hard structures, it's flexible elements that will come back that can be remobilized later. There are even sites in North Carolina. I think they have half a dozen or 10 beach renourishment projects for sea turtles.
All right. It can also serve an ecological purpose.
A nesting beach where there's no longer any beach.
Exactly.
It's not a nesting beach anymore. In 2021, we had very severe erosion in that area. And as a result, the beach started to get very close to the road. So people started to worry. And so the town hall reached out to the state again saying, what should we do? Now it's getting serious. It's getting closer to the village. What do we do? So then a second study by UBGM stated much more explicitly that a sand replenishment was needed and quantified it at 40,000 cubic meters. So at that point, we really started to move forward with something much more substantial. So we said, well, great, except we could see the sea coming and we were saying, okay, so what do we do in 5 years or next year?
If it happens in 6 months, what do we do?
And so the state said, whoa, well, that's complicated because for this kind of thing, it's 4 years of preparatory studies before we can actually do it. At that point, all the elected officials are, but for us, our problem is in the next 2 or 3 years, not in 4 years. So the state came and offered us lots of solutions, including barriers. I think they weren't yours. They were different barriers. So after a while, when we saw that the sand replenishment would take a long time, the CCOG said, okay, let's take a step back. Everyone was offering us their own miracle solutions from all directions. And the CCOG said, well, then we're going to conduct a study of all the options we have. They put out a call, they put out a tender, and it was Artelia who won the contract. And they carried out a study of pretty much everything that was possible, from the seawall to sand replenishment, sheet piling.
So an opinion and independent technical assessment with all possible and conceivable solutions.
And the preferred solution, more or less, was to say, well, for erosion, the best thing is to replenish the beach with sand, which will buy you time in case of severe erosion. For flooding, the best thing is to put in a
removable seawall.
A removable seawall. Like everyone else, the first time the state told us we're going to put this thing here, we said, but wait, we have houses that are going to be lost. The road is at risk. And now you're saying we're just going to put up a little plastic barrier. At first, we were a bit skeptical. And just like when we showed it to the technical services of the municipalities or the territorial authority, they were skeptical too.
Of course.
And little by watching videos, talking, asking questions. For me, something that really reassured me was the fact that there was no glue involved. Because here, glues, whether it's for shoes, for inflatable boats, things like that.
Oh yes, the weight is the way the barrier is made.
Once it's glued here, after a year, there's nothing left. For now, everything we are observing here isn't related or is very, very little related to climate change. On the other hand, we know very well that it's happening. The local projections we have for sea level by 2050 are basically an increase of between 20 and 30 centimeters. We assume that if we have 25 more centimeters of water in 25 years, it's not going to improve our situation in terms of marine flooding. So for now, we are mainly dealing with regional issues, but we also know that we are part of this global trend with rising sea levels. The first part was to respond to emergencies related to erosion and flooding. The second part would be to work with the population to think about how we prepare for a possible relocation. So the idea is to see how we can adapt housing, whether we can find areas for relocation, and how, if we do relocate, we don't just move a house somewhere else, but we rebuild a village. We recreate a place that's pleasant to live in. Then there are questions, for example, about revegetating the beach, if we gain sand, things like that. That will really be things to build together through participatory projects with the residents, with discussing which plant species they think are appropriate, seeing how they envision the beach in front of their homes, if we're planning to gain a few. If they want a soccer field, if they want fruit trees.
There was the soccer field.
Yeah, the soccer field.
Yes. It's hard to believe. But it's crazy.
Before there were some shrubs, soccer field, and a row of carbet huts that were rented out, and then the beach for the sea turtles.
And we're talking about 20 years ago.
Yeah, that was like 97 when I came. It was like that.
That's why it's impressive.
The CNRS tells us we could regain 100 meters in the next 10 or 20 years.
That's right. Okay. So we could actually start thinking about the soccer field again.